Good morning and welcome to new streaming network WGSN-DB, going solo network radio, TV, and podcast, #1 internet singles top network. I'm Elana with your Health Vibes, and today I have my beautiful friend Amy Mitchell. I'm so blessed to have her here. She's a seasoned corporate professional. And today we are going to be talking about unlocking your true self by stepping aside from your barriers. So you can contact me at ef11ca@gmail.com. My number is 562-235-8410, yourhealthvibes.com. And let's get started. So first of all, there's a lot going on. So let's refocus. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say Amy is really, really special to me, and I'm so blessed to have her on today. We got so many good nuggets, and I would just love for you to introduce yourself to the world, because I'm blessed to know you, but they need to know you as well.
Okay, so my name is Amy Mitchell, and I've worked in corporate America for over 30 years. It's a very engineering heavy background, but the interesting thing is that I saw that the people piece was really missing. So when I went back to school, I was working because I started right out of high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I went back to school. I got my bachelor's degree in business with a focus in organizational development and psychology.
Wow.
And then I went to University of Santa Monica and got my graduate degree in spiritual psychology.
Amazing.
Yes. So it was unpacking that was really about doing my own inner work, and being able to really get to the crux of issues in that corporate America environment, which anybody who's been in it, even for a hot second, knows how difficult it can be sometimes, and sometimes even a little toxic. So how do you stand in your own self and still bring forward your gifts and your intelligence and your knowledge to do the right thing?
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that you're on, because this is what we need more of, is just really being vulnerable and honest. And, we think a story or the corporate world's this or that, or how to deal with so many things. And I want to kind of start off just kind of how Amy and I met, and then we got to reconnect later on in life. So do you want to tell a little bit of a story? And
so it's interesting. I met Elana when she was 17. Were you 17?
17 or 18? Yeah.
My ex and I were buying our house, and her parents were our real estate agents. So, every year I got the holiday card with her happy family face, with your sister, your mom and dad, and the dog,
right?
Which we were just talking about last night. And then, so I was very on this very healing kind of spiritual journey, and there was a spiritual retreat, and it was very serious, as people can be sometimes. And Elana was there, and there were these two other women, and there were probably about, 8 or 9 other people. Yeah. And we were like little kids laughing with the two other women. We were having so much fun and laughing, and we're like, oh, that's right, we have to be serious because healing is very serious, I'm kidding. Yeah. So we were laughing, and when I left there, I'm like, I feel like I know her already. How do I know her? And I get home, and there's your holiday card with your face right there. And I'm like, oh my God, your parent, oh my gosh, that was so funny. And that was about 8 years ago.
Yeah, about 8 years ago. Yeah. And just been in each other's lives, motivating, being there, the strong woman. I just feel so blessed to reconnect and have such a strong woman in my life like you.
And back at you too. And such a supportive friend, really, and a cheerleader,
Thank you.
Yes.
And I think we need that in the world, as women and men, or people supporting people, and honestly showing up real and authentic and doing it because you want to, not because they did something for you or you feel bad. What I love about us is that we can be real, raw, authentic, and show up for who we are. And that what helps us create unlocking our true self, because you help us see and get rid of those barriers that stand in our way.
Yeah. And if anything like that, like in corporate America, is really difficult, and I think it's like a secret thing, but I'll just bring it forward, is that women see each other as a threat. And really, I never felt that way. I always felt like it was really important to, especially there was a mentor program, and I mentored a lot of young women right out of college. And I remember one time they were so surprised the way other women were acting towards them and me. And they said, this is like high school. And I thought, unfortunately, we thought it would end then. But we'd come in and there'd people be professional and getting your back.
Yeah.
And so really just trying to hold that space in corporate America where you don't feel threatened by people. You really want to grow them, because if they grow, you grow.
Right.
It's not like if they get something, it takes away from you. It's really, you got to be from that mindset.
I totally agree, because it benefits from the both side. And then you know that you can help each other. It's not like you're against them. You want to show up for them as well. And you see, I feel like, we always want to be in this competition or one up or this or that. But in reality, we can grow together because we're doing the same thing.
Absolutely. Yes.
So let me ask you, what are some barriers that have come into your way that you were able to kind of see, or what has helped you, or, what's stopping you from really in this cover or doing you? What has stopped you from, life?
So this is something interesting, like for me to define barriers first.
Right.
If that's okay. So
I'm so sorry to stop real fast. And we all have different barriers. So what your barrier could be is my barrier, but we just wanted to share all different perspectives.
Right. Because some things you try it on if it fits, and you take what you like and leave the rest. Right. You just because one person has this perspective doesn't mean you have to take it as yours. Right.
Yeah.
So for me, a barrier is just information on how to, and they overuse this word in corporate America so much, pivot. Can we pivot? But truly, if you think about it, your barrier is just information to show you where you don't want to be.
Right.
So if you have, like, barriers are not all bad either.
I agree with that.
Like driving up the mountains where we're at, there's a barrier. Now, hopefully we stay in our lane, but what if somebody like pushes us out? There's a barrier there. So it's not all negative, right?
Right. But protects you to an extent, but then pushes you more to get over the protection.
Yes. Right. So, but if you keep hitting up against barriers, there's so much to say about that. But what I really want to say most of all is in defining it, not to live in the barrier. So notice that the barrier's there to protect you. But I think what we tend to do, or I tend to do in the past, is here is something showing me what I don't want.
Right.
So that's information to say, I don't want this, and go towards what I want.
Yeah.
But what I see myself and other people do is, like, we live in what we don't want, and I'm trying to think of an example. Okay. This is a good example. Yeah. So I got injured at work. I had to have a surgery just recently. I'm off my corporate job right now because of this surgery. And then the surgery has to maybe be redone. That's not resolved. So here's the thing. I want to be healthy.
Yeah.
I don't want to focus on all the problems of the surgery. I just need the information so this stuff can get resolved. And then I don't go, oh my gosh, this happened because they did this. And there are victims in the world. I'm not saying there's not, but to live in the victim instead of like, okay, I have this information about this injury. Now I have to pivot out of that. And so, okay, what do I need to do towards my health, towards my healing, and empower myself towards that? So that's defining the barrier. So that's kind of barriers, like health barriers. Like,
so maybe we can expand a little bit more, because you have to care enough to love yourself and do something about it in self-care and to show up. So maybe some of your barriers, what are some like healthcare, like that you're working for you that is important to you so you can show up?
That's a really good question, because for years there was this thing, and I don't want to get into the details because it's boring, but
it's never boring. Okay, your stories are always exciting, but
spoken from somebody who loves me. So the question again was more about
like healthcare, like we talked about self-care. And when we show up, we're showing up for this person and that person and the job, and I have to be here, but what is your care for you? How do you care for Amy and break those barriers so you can be your true authentic self?
What I really had to do is identify what my own patterns were as far as healthcare, so I kept putting myself, because of the pressure at work, in a situation that I would get hurt physically more.
Yeah.
So I kept putting myself, well, they're having layoffs, so you may need to, so I'd go, okay, I'll just do this thing instead. And so what I had to look at is, why wasn't I putting myself and my body and my health first?
Ooh, that's
That
good.
was, and it wasn't their fault.
Right, because we're so quick,
Yes.
so quick to blame others.
Yeah.
Then take on responsibility of understanding that. And I think we talked about, there's no good or bad having that
Right.
story, maybe,
Yeah.
evolving of, I'm bad because I didn't do this, or I'm good because I did that.
Yes. So there is issues always happening outside of ourselves, but that one piece that's inside of myself, what can I do? And it's like, out of fear, I was continuing to perform these tasks that were hurting me.
Yeah.
And out of fear, instead of saying, no, this is me, my life, my body. And if I lose my job, I have to trust that I'm going to be okay. It's that whole leap in the net will appear thing. That
I love that, like trusting yourself. So
yeah.
What made you like trust it? Like, are there little signs, or someone when they're in a situation and they're really wanting to trust themselves? What's something that helps you really trust that, intuition? And we tend to steer away from that.
I could say a lot about, it all comes down to our nervous system, I think, our regulating of our nervous system. If I am in a place of panic or fear, then I know I'm probably not making the best decision.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff out there about nervous system and somatic therapy and being in your body. And it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all approach. So I did this work for a long time where it's like, okay, trace your body, like feel your feet on the ground, and that didn't work for me. That just activated me even more. Right. So I had to, if I was in a place of panic or fear that maybe I was going to lose my job, or maybe that I wasn't going to be the golden child anymore, the superstar, seriously, that they relied on.
Right.
I had to I had to wait and do what I need to do to calm myself down. Now for me, as you know, it's like my dogs, being in the mountains, being by the beach, talking to a friend, getting it out of my system, having the cheerleaders in my life that I have, like truly you. And I have, Bob Proctor, the tribe, like I was going to talk about Bob Proctor's book, Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. But he talks about having a mastermind group. It could be 2 or 3 people. I don't advertise everything I'm doing to everybody. I just keep it within this close knit people that get me and support me and can reflect back to me, like, I'm concerned about you if I can't see it for myself.
Right.
That's why all those sayings are out there. You can't see the forest from the trees. You're in the middle of the fishbowl, right?
Yeah.
So, so truly it was about that barrier was like, hey, and then asking myself, and this is another thing, not to live in the why, like, why am I putting all this before my own health? Why am I putting all this, everybody else,
right?
This project, this problem, why am I doing that before taking care of myself? And then I had to really look at what that pattern was inside of me.
And I think too, we talk kind of like people pleasers,
yes.
And so, I'm guilty of it, definitely guilty of that. And so I think too, that plays into not taking care. We want to not ruffle feathers. You want to take care of everybody else, but if you don't take care of yourself, then you can't fill anybody else up to an extent, like, because I love to serve. Like, I feel like I was put here to serve. And so, sometimes when people say like, well, if you serve others and you're not doing yourself, but serving others really fills my cup, so then I can serve myself as well. I feel like you're like that with a little bit too of,
I get it. It's a fine line, isn't it?
Correct.
Because where does the line cross from people pleasing to being of service?
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
And for me, I have to look at, am I trying to get a need met, a validation from the outside that somebody thinks I'm wonderful or care about me? Am I trying to validate myself through this act, or is it just purely like a random act of kindness, like nobody's going to find out sort of thing? And then the thing is if I have that in me, don't judge myself because I'm trying to get a need met. It's just, I'm going about it sideways. And I need to give that to myself. Right. So if I'm like, Elana knows, but I have plenty of like, the role in my family system, family of origin stuff was, I feel like always the caretaker, always the one showing up for people. And it's like, this is why Bob Proctor's work, oh my gosh, change your paradigm, change your life. If you don't get anything from today, truly change your paradigm, change your life. Bob Proctor, listen to it for 10 minutes a day. I have been in these studies for 30 years, from when I was 19 and Louise Hay's book fell off of a shelf in a bookstore. Thank God. You Can Heal Your Life. For 30 years. And just recently started listening to him for 20 minutes a day and processing and learning. And I've really seen, not only is it not about this paradigm, which is a pattern.
Yeah.
I'm living somebody else's perhaps paradigm of who they thought I was supposed to be when I was young, and really trying to determine inside and intending like, no, this is who I am. This is who people need me to be. And it's going to be uncomfortable when you change because people expect you to be the way you've always been. Right.
Right.
It's not for
Maybe
them.
you can expand a little bit more on that, because I feel like you're very good about that and bringing that out in someone as, you know, our whole life where we have these stories, or your parents want you to do this and you want to do that and we want to show up. But when do you get to show up for yourself and say, I'm Amy, this is who I am, like breaking that barrier too? Where do you put that line to?
I think about 3 or 4 years ago, you know, I was taking care of my friend, love of my life. She had terminal cancer, and then my mom at the same time, and they both passed. And, I remember in the middle of all of this, I had this thought to myself, like, that'd be so cool if I had an Amy. And then I was like, you do have an Amy. This is ridiculous. Like, you know, showing up, making sure they had their meds, their appointments, the dealing with the bureaucracy of the medical system. I mean, that could be a whole nother show, show. So truly realizing, wait a second, you do have an Amy. And while these were crisis situations, just understanding like what a toll that took on me, because you got to give from your overflow. Yes. You can't give from your empty well. It's just going to suck the energy dry from you. Right. And also you know, one of the things at USM, University of Santa Monica, that we really learned is it's a real egoic position to think, I know what you need and how you should be, whether that's sober, whether that's your house should be clean, whether that's healed from cancer. Like, I know what it should be, and I'm going to be the one to help you with that. Instead of like, people came onto this earth with their own curriculum, their own spiritual path, own agenda. Yeah. And it's really like you were talking about earlier, it's perfect. It's like, where do you draw the line from? And that's like, I want to be of service, but not of servitude. Right. And I want to provide my gifts, but then also
not get taken advantage of or look at it in a different way. Yeah. So no, that's really beautiful that you say that. And I think, you know, with the world and everything going on, we get stuck in these stories and creating these stories, or like, that's how I should have been, or that's, you know, and not really standing up for your true self of what is, I think, and breaking that ancestral, you know,
which is another one that I share.
Yeah, of course.
So there's 3 game changers for me. Yes. Dr. Jorge Pardita, The Promise of the Fifth Son, Ron and Mary Holnick from the University of Santa Monica, their spiritual psychology book. It's called Loyalty to Your Soul.
Ooh, yes, I really like that. That's really...
and they still have that school. And then Bob Proctor, Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life.
Do you want to maybe expand a little bit more on that? One
of the things that Jorge Pardita's work was about was really looking at your patterns. And so these all blended beautifully. Right. So it's really about looking at your patterns, but not living in them, accepting these things like could happen. These things could happen to you, but do you live in what happened to you, or do you shift out of it? But first you have to identify what they are. Right. So that's a fine line, right? Yeah. Spending time identifying what these patterns are. So when they come in, because another thing Bob Proctor talks about is like, everything's operating from our subconscious, our patterns, whether we realize it or not. But our subconscious only receives. Our conscious is what, if you think about, you know, the military standing sentry. So our conscious needs to stand sentry and be so careful what we allow in our subconscious. Because if we really look at it, we're playing our patterns over and over again.
Totally. Hey, sis, thank you. So my sister says she totally agrees. It's so much harder to help others if you haven't taken care of yourself first. Thanks, sis. We totally thank you for being on here. And then parents are on. Thanks, Dad. They agree with Amy. You have to be your own caregiver, which is so true. Right. You have to give to yourself, you know.
Yes, yes, yes. You have to give from your own. There's even a song about that, you know.
Sing it.
I'm getting ready. I'm living for my overflow.
Oh.
I think Nicki Minaj is even in that song. Wait, I have that wrong. Because there's a little bit of a rap in there.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the song. But really it's like I'm giving from my overflow. I cannot give from an empty well. It's that whole old adage of the airplane mask. And putting the oxygen on.
And you maybe say to get like,
so when you're on an airplane, they tell you to put your mask on first before you put it on your child or anybody you're trying to help, right?
So that should say something in general if it is, you know, really like as a thing in general that people need to look more, because I think the guilt comes out. Oh, I didn't do my child, or I didn't do this person. I didn't. Right. Well, why don't you feel guilty that you didn't do something for yourself?
Right.
You know, or not necessarily guilty. I reword. Why don't you care enough about yourself that you do for others?
Yeah. And then it could be, it's just a pattern.
Exactly.
It's just a pattern.
And your barrier, like one of your barriers.
So think of it this way. Bob Proctor talks about this in his book, Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. He talks about poison, like poison being a nightshade, and something good being sweet corn. You can plant both in the same soil and they'll both grow.
I really like that analogy.
Yes.
Maybe we can expand a little bit more on that.
Yes. So what you plant grows. It's not moral or immoral. It's not good or bad. It's just what you choose to plant. And it's not like we're going to get this perfect every time, right?
Right. Because nothing's perfect. And then
we're not
trying to control. I think, I think, you know, maybe we could talk a little more of that. It's like having that control, controlling an outcome. So, you know, when we find out something, we want to control. Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Instead of allowing it. But that's like, I feel society and people, we put this pressure. You have to have an outcome right away. But I think if someone was like, here it is, it's okay to wait and you'll find out, you would be easier. Your immune system, everything would be more calming and you know what you're getting into, opposed to having that answer already needed it.
So why do you think that we want the answer? Like, what is the first thing that comes up for you? Like, why do you want the answer? Why do we need to know? Because I go through that myself too. Like, I want to know what the outcome's going to be.
I think it's the way we condition control. We always want an outcome. We always want to know if it's going to be, because I think that's in any situation. But I think what we need to be taught is that to go with what happens when it's out of your control. When you have the control, okay, like that's fine. But when it's truly out of your control, you have to let it rest and let go. Right. And I think the hardest thing is letting go.
And I don't know if any of us were ever taught that. So it's hard to teach our kids that. But if you think about like, you know, like the trauma of raising a teenager, like, oh my God, somebody doesn't like me. And just as an adult going back and like, good, because who they are isn't the greatest person in the world. Or like, if they like you, my mom used to always say, I love this. She had so many amazing things, but one of them is, if that person over there doesn't like me, that's great, because I do not subscribe to their morals, their moral compass, who they are as a person. So if somebody that has something that I don't respect doesn't like me, that's really a good thing.
Right.
If they like me, I need to look at myself.
Yeah.
Right. So I always think about that with Tony, my mom. But I think about her Tony-isms. Trust me. I even have a picture up that says, never explain, never justify, never defend yourself. Tony Hayworth.
Say it again.
Never explain, never justify, and never defend yourself. I got so much from my mom. She was like the only woman at OSHA meetings in the 70s. They used to, and she was a badass, right? So
that's why you're a badass too.
So one of the things, like I would say, like, okay, like I'd play something out, like, how do I handle this? She was the best. I could call her about a work thing, and she would have these like mic drops. And if I'd start to go, okay, do I say this? And this is why. She's like, never explain, never justify, never defend yourself. And that was just, if you look at, then if I catch myself doing that, I ask myself, why do I feel I need to defend or justify myself? You know?
Why do you think we need to, like, what do you think that is too, of why do we feel so defensive constantly or trying to, you know, prove ourselves to someone? Do you think
it's back to the people pleasing thing. I think, so I have this, like back to the like work thing. So I had this epiphany the other day with the help of somebody. It was like, so at work before the injury and before I was off work and then went back and then went off again for the problem. I was the superstar, the one who they relied on, whatever. So I go into this new environment and nobody really they're like, you have to take this, even though it's something I would coach, mentor, and train, you have to take this class because you don't know anything. It was really awful.
Wow.
Right. So I started to feel myself get really depressed. And then somebody helped me with this. Wait a second. Just because they don't see it doesn't mean it went away or it's not there or it was never there. So I think that's so important to remember. Just because somebody doesn't see it doesn't mean
it's not real. And
it's not real and it's not there and it's not inside of you. I still have the skill set.
Right.
But maybe somebody doesn't see it, then move on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Bye.
Yeah. So,
bye, Felicia.
And I think it's really about that, right, Elena? It's about like, it's like, just really like, is this a pattern of mine?
Right.
And it's then, but the most important thing is not to beat yourself up for being in your pattern. It's just
and
like,
going down that rabbit hole because, you know, if you're not number one in your friend's book, then maybe you should not be their friend. This is from my mom. Thanks, Deb. Fun fact from Deb. And also my mom says too, something that I've learned from Deb is you have a choice. You have a choice how to show up. You have a choice how you react, and you have a choice of who you want to be. And, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, you have that choice and, you know, you can do it. Thanks, Tony.
So yeah, it's all about choice, right? But it's back to understanding what the pattern is. And that's why Jorge Pardita's book, The Promise of the Fifth Son, it really opened me up to not only do we have our own pattern, we have our cultural patterns, and then we have our ancestral patterns.
Right.
And just think about it. And Bob Proctor says this too, 2 people united and they made you. And that's just why we look like our ancestors, because
that's why my mom's my twin.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So we look like these people, and we also carry some of their personality traits, some of their, like the maybe trauma they endured. Like my family on my mom's side came over on the second Mayflower, truly.
Wow.
And I think I've been starting to get into ancestry, came over as indentured servants of all things, right?
Wow.
So if you think about, and this is kind of deep, but like, remember I was talking about the servitude versus like being like in your gift and giving from the place of overflow. And so it's interesting that that's a family pattern.
Wow.
You know,
and we don't realize that. So you're wondering where you got it from.
Right. And so I find that fascinating. And I look back at my mom's side in there and the strong resemblance of the women in my family, you know?
Yeah.
So, so I really, really feel like it's not an overnight thing.
No.
It's really like finding, like mine is Ron and Mary Holnick, Jorge Pardita, Bob Proctor, but that may not resonate with somebody.
Right.
So it's not a one size fits all thing. Right.
And that's what I love about that, because so many times we see these things or these coaches, there's that, and everybody, it's like, it's for everybody, but it's not. We all have our own ways that we want to show up. We all have our own gifts. We all have our own things that help us. Yeah. And I think just being authentic and showing up that way is really helpful. But knowing, as what you said, it could be from this, it could be from that. I mean, my grandma came like over here like 10 years after her mom, you know, so there were so many like, and they almost couldn't get over it, you know, and so there's so much trauma that if we don't see that and deal with that, then it's just going to keep continuing.
And it's in our bloodline. And so that's part of that work, is like looking at what the patterns are, like what are my patterns and how are they related to that?
Right.
And then how do I give from the overflow? How do you fill yourself up? And it's got to be the thing that you love actually is what you're supposed to be doing. You know, I used to think that for whatever reason, I used to think, man, I'm going to have to be a nun and an accountant. I did when I was like 12, because that's what good girls do.
And you're told good girl, you know, like the story
both ways. For me,
right?
we weren't even Catholic.
Yeah.
That's weird, right? So anyway, I thought if you were a really good person, I used to have this thing. You remember Gone with the Wind, Melanie, that like martyr lady?
Yeah,
like I thought that was a good person. Now I'm like, gag. We should watch Gone with the Wind later. But I was like, I look at it now and I'm like, gag. But you know, she was just such a martyr, and she took everybody's crap, and she's like, oh, you know, go ahead and sleep with my husband. It's okay. Like, screw that, man. Screw being that doormat.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't get anybody anywhere. And even if you get here's the crazy part. if you get the accolades, if you get the love you need, if you get the validation you need, if you don't have an experience of that feeling inside of yourself, it's not going to be enough. It's going to be so fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just running outside of ourselves looking for
Right.
that. So how do you fill yourself up? And for me, it's like with my art now, my art was a business at one point, but with the injury, I haven't been able to do that. And so,
and that
really,
makes me like, her artwork
you're
is
so sweet.
so incredible, what she does, and takes it from the soul. It's not what it's good for the person. It's not what's it's about Amy. It's about the person. She shows up. You feel so loved. I have a bunch of her art pieces in my house. And every time I feel so filled, I feel so seen because she puts that love. It's not about, oh, what profit I'm in, how can I help it in both ways? And it's just such a beautiful thing. And I think when we get stuck and not being able to do what we want and truly love, that's the barrier.
And that's the fun part. Oh, I curated a whole, like, I don't know how many, 5 pieces for you.
Yes.
Or
no,
6?
6.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
it's gemstone. Like, I use gemstones, and I'm a little woo-woo, but I'm not like, so here's the thing that I feel
and you
like,
could be as woo-woo as you want to be, because it's even better.
so it's like this. It's like, you know, some people wear a cross around their neck or whatever, but it's not that the cross has the power. It's that what they believe has the power, right? Same thing with, I think everything's energy.
Yeah.
And Bob Proctor even talks about this in his book, where he says like spirit is everywhere. And they say, but everywhere, but in a piece of wood or a garden rock. So everywhere in a piece of wood or a garden rock, like, no, it's everywhere. So energy's in everything, you know? So,
and like what vibe? So like with my, you know, like with my show, it's what vibe. It's not changing yourself. It's not, you know, because everybody's knew this, knew that. You have to change. Energy. What vibe do you want to bring? What energy do you want to show up? And I think it's too, because we feel others' energy, especially us too, are very sensitive to that. And I think you need to protect yourself and what energies you're evolving yourself in.
Yeah. And so even like with your pieces, like it was like pink for me, like, so rose quartz, strawberry quartz, which is just really dyed crystal quartz, but still, but rose quartz, and then amethyst, and then mother of pearl, which is super like, you know, like to mother yourself, to love that part of yourself, the rose quartz for self-love and attracting love. And so it was so fun. And then sparkle. Yeah. So then there's this thing, and it's resin art. This is like, because I make intention jewelry. Yes. And then I make these big resin art pieces. Oh yeah, I have some of mine on, but I make that jewelry, but then the resin art pieces were really about the crystals and the colors. And then I would just like set with you. And then with the resin too, one of my biggest passions lately is because I just understand like what it's like, that grief, missing somebody, people that have passed. Yeah. So my father-in-law for life of my ex, her dad died. And so I was able to do one little thing because it was a small piece. It wasn't physical. So for his service, I made resin heart keychains with a piece of one of his shirts, like a fishing hook. It made him blue to match his eyes in the sea. And so, and then I put the fishing hook inside of the resin, and I just wrote up how this reminded me of him, of Randy. And it was like, he was there. It sounds crazy, but it's like I felt him there.
Because you feel the energy, and the energy, and that's what you create, is you create the energy of that person. So even if they've passed or done, you still feel them with you. And that is so beautiful. You get the essence of their soul.
And it was so cool because the sparkling, like his eyes sparkled blue. So I did blue lapis, and you met him.
Yeah.
And so, but I felt his, I really did when I was making it and I was trying to get it perfect. And he's like, that's fine, baby. I think it's good right there. That's what I heard. And now maybe I was just remembering him,
but you did, and it brought out that and the good memories.
The memorial pieces with resin are truly one of the things I'm going to be doing more of is like taking like artifacts or little pieces of clothes from people and turning it into a beautiful piece of art. And you know, that'll come in time, and when I'm physically, when this is resolved, and I know it will be. And then in the meantime, just to kind of fill myself up, do a little bit, because here's the other thing, this is the other gemstone. If you, the fear of failure is the true road to success. Life's biggest lessons are from trial and error. It is learning to recognize your errors to make them yourself. This is key.
Yeah. So one more time from Mom. Thank you, Deb Feldman. She says, the fear of failure is the true road to success. Life's biggest lessons are from trial and error. It is learning to recognize your errors to make them your success.
So can I touch
Yes,
on this a little
please.
bit?
Yeah.
So back to Bob Proctor's book,
Yeah.
he talks about the people that fail are people that don't make a decision. So you have to have a worthy goal,
Right.
your worthy goal.
Yeah.
The goal comes from inside of you, the thing that lights you up. Like not everybody's going to get lit up about memorial art and keychains, right?
Or seniors.
But he says God, spirit, whatever, puts this drive, or you, like with your seniors, puts this desire. You are so funny with seniors. So puts this desire inside of you because that is supposed to be your worthy goal. But the thing is people get caught up in what he calls daily trivia. Back in the day, before social media, daily trivia was gossip, was watching too much TV, now it's like all day on Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
And comparing
yourself. It's the minutia.
And looking what's good on paper.
Yes, what's in the minutia of life. So you have to have this goal that you strive for. And here's the thing. You are going to make mistakes. Now, the biggest successes in corporate America, these are like these badass. Yeah. They were like, in the truest sense of the form, the healed psychopath, like that's like, hey, yeah, you got a problem. I don't care. I'm my eyes on the prize, the kind of people. So they did not give two licks what anybody thought of them. They knew what they were supposed. They were never like, oh, but I don't want to hurt their feelings, and I don't want them not to like me. No, it was like, hey,
they knew their worth. They knew
you bring me a problem, you bring me a solution, and it better be the right one. Yeah. Don't even come and whine to me like this kind of.
That's
energy.
how Tony, my boyfriend is. He's very, his project, but he wants a solution. If you're going to come to him, have the solution, have that show up, and don't just come like a chicken with your head cut off.
So the two things is fail fast. Okay, so fail fast. Okay, this didn't work. Pivot to the next thing and go on to the next thing. Don't get inside of yourself of like, oh, I messed up and I'm such a failure and I'm such a cancel. The story of no, this didn't work. And I make the decision. I don't spend forever. One podcast I was listening to, this woman was talking about, you know what she does? She takes people that she wants to hire out to lunch. And if they can't decide what they want to eat or drink, or they don't read a room, she's like, this person's great on paper, but not so much, because making the decision is key. So you make the decision and then you execute it. You make the decision and you execute it, instead of living in that place of ambiguity and not making that decision.
Right.
And
which is so hard.
Yeah. Then you move forward with that.
Right. My dad says, if we could really follow what you two have been talking about, hope that people take something from today in the comments as well. Thanks, Dad. Appreciate that.
So, I mean, and this to that point, this may not be a fit for everybody. Right.
Exactly. Like someone might pop on and be like, not today. Or like,
we see everything through our own filter. I trained a lot in corporate America. And one of the very interesting things was people try to solve a problem, and sometimes their resolution's a catastrophic solution, right? So what I would always have to understand is we're seeing everything through our filter, our experiences and our training.
Right.
So if I have an engineer, they're going to want to redesign something. If I have a tooling person, they want to buy a new tool.
Yeah.
If I have a procurement person, they want to change. But they don't understand the true problem. So they try to implement a solution without understanding the true problem.
Right.
So ideally what you want to do is say, what is the ideal state here? What is the ideal state? And then the opposite is what the problem you're trying to solve. But always go to like, what is the ideal situation state? What does this look like the best here?
Right. Yeah. And something on LinkedIn that I just looked up on, she has in her wallet, says, leap and the net will appear. I really like that.
I do.
Taking that leap, taking that, it's just doing something outside of your box of something you didn't think you would do, and showing up for yourself and doing what you said, living in your joy. I think too, like with this, if people don't know, it's human design. I'm a 4-1 generator, and for generators, it's living in their joy. If we aren't living our joy, then we're not showing up. So if it looks like I'm sitting there picking my nose and that's my joy, and I'm going to do it, then I'm going to show up better. But it triggers someone because a lot of people can't sit in their joy and understand that you're sitting with yourself and you're happy.
Yeah.
Because they think, I need to work, I need to do this, I need, your game plan that you're conditioned to.
And just to touch on that, if I can. So some people sitting there, the term spiritual bypass or spiritual whitewash. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, everything's fine. I'm happy. This didn't bother me. All the while I'm seething inside and doing all this passive aggressive shit. Like, we all experience that. People, right? So when you're sitting in your joy, it doesn't mean that like, oh, I'm meditating with crystals and I'm so happy and nothing bothers me and I never get mad and I love everybody. And that's not your place of joy.
No.
But for somebody else, they don't experience that depth of joy.
Right.
What's so interesting about when you experience that kind of joy, you also have to, that depth of sorrow and pain.
Yeah, there's light and dark.
Yes.
You can't just live in the light of woo-woo.
Yes. And the light of woo-woo. So even though it's like funny that I say that, it's truly about just being honest with yourself about how you're feeling. You know?
And my sister said, you can't worry about triggering other people. That is their journey and stuff to work on. Your joy is the most important. So true.
But the thing that a lot of people, and even myself, they say this thing, you triggered me. Do you trigger me?
Yeah.
The trigger's inside of us.
Right.
The trigger is like, if I'm triggered, it means that I have some unresolved issue material.
Yeah.
So if you look at everything in life for your upliftment, learning, and growth,
Yeah.
So that's the most key. So if I could just say like, that is the true thing. It's looking at everything that comes to you because and I know that we're going to wrap up here, but if you look at the planting in the soil, the poison and the sweet can plant in the same way. But if you take that and you like focus on the sweet, but sometimes the poison comes and what's this for my learning, upliftment, and growth? And maybe that's just to move out of the situation and be like, dodge that bullet. You know what I mean?
Definitely. So I just want to kind of close out and say thank you so much. It made my heart so happy for you to be here. We could be on here for another hours and upon hours. So I'm Elana Falvin. We're Unlock Your True Self by Stepping Aside. This is Amy Mitchell. You can reach her at
Amy Mitchell Art or Woo Woo Heart at Instagram.
And I'm Elana. And you can reach me at I'm Elana with ef11ca@gmail.com. My phone number is 562-235-8410. And I just wanted to say we are on we're on our new streaming network, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast. #1 internet singles talk network. And I'm Elana with Your Health Vibes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being present. I'm here bi-weekly, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 o'clock Eastern. And, send this on to people. If you liked it, send it because others will as well. I love you. I honor you. I see you. And I will see you in a little bit. Mwah.
Bye. Thank you,
now.
Elana. Thank you for having me.
so much.
Appreciate you. Love you.
Love you.